Okay, so in today's video, we're going to talk about, obviously, addiction, what causes it, what's it look like. I want to start off by saying, first of all, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I try to base my opinions on facts. I obtain those facts researching decades upon decades of evidence-based research from various different study groups. So I'm more confident in my opinion than somebody that has never researched anything. And let me explain what I mean by that. I respect other people's opinion, and one of the most controversial topics in this culture of recovery is addiction a disease or is it a choice? Well, again, there are decades upon decades of evidence-based research that all suggest that addiction is a disorder. Now, the argument to that is how that disorder began. A lot of people will say it was a bad choice. So that's the aspect that we're going to talk about today. What causes addiction? Now, you can look up various different models on the internet. There are some models that have 6 factors. There are some that have 8. I use the 3 primary factors of what actually causes drug addicts and alcoholics to continuously use. The very first element of that model is genetics. Some people are born with a genetic predisposition passed on to them from their mother, from their father, from their mother's father, from their father's mother, and so forth. Now, there's nothing that we can do about genetics. We can't pick and choose what we're born with. But that does not mean that people that are born with this disposition automatically become alcoholics and addicts. So if, let's say, you are born with this genetic predisposition and your parents had these behaviors or their parents had these behaviors, and you're pretty confident that even before you pick up that you might be susceptible to addiction because of your mother or father or because of your grandparents or because of your uncles or because of your siblings or whatever that looks like, that could possibly be true. But that does not mean that you automatically become an alcoholic or addict. There are 2 other factors, primary factors, that go into this. The second factor of this model is environment. Now, environment's a little bit easier to change as an adult. However, we're talking about what causes addiction, not what maintains addiction. And we'll get to that in another episode further down the road. Growing up, if we are already genetically predisposed, and we are in an environment where our parents are alcoholics and addicts and our grandparents and so on and so forth, statistically, you have a much easier chance of becoming addicted when you get older just because of those primary factors alone. You're genetically disposed to it, environmentally disposed to it, and then finally, the third element and the third factor is, in my opinion, it's the most important one, and that is trauma. Trauma is the most important factor of this model, in my opinion, and I'm going to explain why. I am confident that there are no 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds on this planet that I can interview today and ask them what they want to be when they grow up. Not one of them are going to tell me that they want to be an addict. I don't think anybody aspires to be a drug addict or an alcoholic. So why is that? A lot of controversy when we get older, and we're trying to explain this to people that just don't understand, is they think that they continue to choose this lifestyle every single day. Well, that could not be further from the truth. As I look back at my own life story, and I didn't do this until I got sober, and when I got sober, I did a thorough inventory. I didn't know what the fuck that looked like before I walked into AA. I had no idea what a fearless and searching moral inventory was. I didn't understand any of that shit. That was like speaking a foreign language to me. I just did it because my sponsor suggested that I do it, and I took his suggestions to heart, and I went through the process, and I started looking back at shit, even in my childhood, that I didn't think that was traumatic from an overall sense of it would just absolutely fuck my life up. And I'm still not saying that today. What I am saying is that there are things that I went through as a child that I didn't know till later on in my life actually affected me. I wasn't raised in an alcoholic home. I wasn't. I was second generation raised. My grandparents took me in when I was 1 year old. My mom and dad were still in my life, but they weren't my parents. They weren't my primary caregivers. My grandparents were. I'm also an only child. And as you can hear now, I can continue to go on and ramble on and on about this poor me shit. But I didn't think that affected me until I looked back. I wrote this shit down on paper and I said, well, what fears did I have? What fears still exhibit in my life today that was rooted back when I was a kid? Well, I didn't really know what a mom and dad was. I had a mom and dad that were my grandma and grandpa. I had a mom and dad that was like a brother and a sister. You know, one weekend I went with my mom. The other weekend I went with my dad. That was the dynamics of how I grew up. And I thought that was normal until I hit my teenage years and I started hanging out with people in the neighborhood. And I started seeing that their dynamics look different from mine. So now I got to get in where I fit in. Like, I got to do shit to stand out, to be a part of the crowd. I didn't realize until I wrote that shit down and I thoroughly looked through it that certain elements of my life that I had no control over as a kid played a factor into traumatic experiences that I've had from early childhood all the way up through an adult. The controversy is not about whether addiction is a disease or is it a disorder. Medically, clinically, we all conclusively agree that addiction is a disorder. But what causes that disorder is kind of up for debate. And I'll leave that on you. I believe that addiction is a byproduct of our mental health. What I mean by that is if you take all three of those factors of that model and you say, what caused us to continue to use and abuse people for years of our life when we're caught in the grips of addiction? Was it depression? Was it anxiety? Was it PTSD from childhood or things that we went through that we continue to want to mask all those emotions with? And we wanted to medicate ourselves to not feel that pain anymore? Or were we just doing it just to get high? And that might be the answer for some people. Maybe people just continue to get high. But most of the people that I know and that I worked with, that towards the end, they weren't even getting high. They were just doing it to stay well. They were doing it to be normal. That's the type of addict that I was. It wasn't even fun the last 5 years. That shit was a nightmare. But I had to do it. I had to do it. There was no choice in the factor. I could go to jail. I could get clean for 30 days or whatever. I'd get back out. And within 2 days, I'm ripping and running and doing the same shit that I was before. Because I have shit going on up here that I'm not willing to address. I have all of this shit that I've dealt with over my entire life that I refuse to look at. But I didn't know the way out. I didn't know the way out until I had a moment of clarity in my life that gave me enough motivation to want to try something different. I hope and pray that if you listen to this, and if you too have had that moment of clarity in your life, that you, like I did, choose to do something different. If you are watching this and you need help, help is there. There are no excuses. There are resources all over this country and all over the world. If you need help, you can reach out. Someone will help you. The hand of recovery will be there for you just as it was for me. I thank you for tuning in. God bless. Till the next time. Peace.